Make sure to join the Discord. Once a week, I ask a question. First person to get the question right gets to pick lore for the weekend. This week's lore comes from the Deadly Lampshade, and it's the Tunnelers from I almost did it. The Tunnelers from Fallout New Vegas' DLC Lonesome Road. So I get all of my lore off of fallout.fandom.com. I want to read a Ulysses quote to start us off. He says, "They'll start emerging throughout the Mojave in time. Might be years, probably less. They breed fast, hunt in groups. More than enough to bring down the strongest in the Mojave. Once they draw blood, seen them tear apart Deathclaws. Deathclaw might get some, but the rest will swarm it, tear it apart, like Denver hounds." So these are creatures found in the Divide in 2281. Now, Ulysses thinks that they could be the product of the Great War itself. After the bombs fell, people naturally went underground to hide, to look for shelter. And he believes that the radiation to them being underground, all of that kind of amplified, kept them under there and rapidly mutated them. The reptilian humanoids, which I never really thought about because that really dog shit mod came out. What the heck? The Frontier came out and they had like reptile people. And I could, like, after reading this, I can see them trying to make it work if they wrapped it into this and didn't just steal assets and flip them for a mod. So for those of you who went to public school like myself, these are bioluminescent creatures. And I wasn't exactly sure what that means. A bioluminescence on an animal is a living organism that produces its own light. So like a firefly, a lightning bug, depending on where you are, they have different names. Anglerfish, pretty much things that are in like the Marianas Trench, the depths of the ocean that we know not about. They're bioluminescent. They have to produce their own light so they can see. And I mean, we can see them too. They have these large bioluminescent eyes that give off this light, and these massive razor sharp toothy grins that tear apart whatever flesh they dig into. These spikes on their shoulders and their head, just to add a little insult to injury. I believe I'm going to read a couple things off the wiki in a bit, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're reskins of trogs in the best way. The trogs from the pit, they took them and they scaled them a little differently. They morphed them a couple different ways and they made these tunnelers. Now they're very adverse to sensory stimulation. Meaning that when you first encounter them, they tell you, like, here's flashbangs. Use these flashbangs. There's flashbangs. I'll go over what their weaknesses are, but I remember flashbangs and flamers. They don't like the light. They don't like the bright. So if you have a flame, you have a big flamethrower, it helps taking them out. Because of them being underground, this is something I'd really like to see explored. Because of them being underground and mutating and evolving, they've become quadrupeds. They're quadrupedal, meaning they move around on 4 limbs, which I never really even picked up on. That's why I never made the connection of them being humans. I assumed that they were some sort of a lizard, much like the Deathclaw that evolved from a gecko. Let's double check that one. Excuse me. Jackson's chameleons. I don't know why I always think geckos. A mutation of that, but they became bipedal. They can roar now. They're not supposed to. Goros can speak. They play with it. I actually, I don't mind Fallout 4's redesign of Deathclaws, but there's a certain charm to the Fallout 3 and New Vegas ones. I never put 2 and 2 together and said, oh, they're quadrupedal, humanoid. Like, they're not Homo erectus. Like, they're a branch off. But why are they scaly? It's really neat that there's not much known about them. I actually really like that about the Tunnelers. Now, this I don't agree with for multiple reasons. It's on the wiki. I'm going to read my notes that I have written down. But I don't believe this because of, I've said before, how Lonesome Road does this, where it's like, this is your story. This is an RPG, but you went here, you went to the Divide, you did this. I'm not a fan of that. But what it says, what I have written down is when the courier was contracted by NCR to deliver a package from Navarro, tunnelers may have set off the nuke underground that never went off. That part, the second part, tunnelers may have set off the nuke underground, that I'm more okay with than the courier, because my character, I don't know that my character did that. Unless I made that my canon for my character. Now this explosion nuked and this area creating the Divide with the winds. and making this hellish landscape because of this going off. And I feel like this is something that's not really talked about a lot in a lot of apocalypse fiction with bombs going off, especially huge nuclear bombs, is earthquakes. When you would shift tectonic plates, this happens. An earthquake happens and it brought them topside. They can't take the light, so they primarily stay underground. There's a few times where they come out. There's that one part under it's right before the highway with the death claws on it in Lonesome Road where you run into them. There's like a hidden death claw there that's like super hard to kill too. What I'm getting at is they're pretty much underground. Again, to reference that same quote that I said about Ulysses, when I was reading this, I go, I don't really see this happening. Like, think about it. Tunnelers, yeah, they're ferocious. Maybe ferocious isn't the word. They're savage beasts. They're thinking about reproducing, eating, sleeping, and drinking. Like, that's it. They have 4 needs. They have 4 wants. That's it. And I thought I don't really think they have the capability to get to the Mojave. I really didn't. And I thought about it and I said, no, the Mojave actually would have a ton. If you're in the city, like if you're in Vegas, if you're in New Vegas, there are tons of opportunities. There is in Freeside, Red Lucy operates in the sewers. The dam, they could get in the dam. That's all like undergroundy shit. That's how the Legion gets in. That type of stuff. Like, they could be a real menace. Do I think settlements like Good Springs would be affected? No, absolutely not. Maybe here and there, but it seems like they're tunneling in things that are pre-existing. I do believe they go underground, but I doubt they're going to make huge nests under Good Springs. I doubt they're going to make huge nests near Jacobstown. Jacobstown's going to be fine. Jacobstown is going to be alrighty okay. That settlement is more than good. I could see Vegas really being affected. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of movement. I would not doubt they have some sort of a sonar where they can pick up on vibrations. It's not stated. That's my own thing that I'm saying I could see. I think this could be a huge problem. All of the waterworks, like there's the NCR has that underground facility. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a couple different points, not only in Freeside. Freeside, I feel like would be hit the hardest, especially with the followers. The followers would be constantly trying to help people. I really didn't think about how much of a problem tunnelers could be. And like, what happens if tunnelers get to some place like the Madre and they get affected by the cloud? Like, what happens there? What happens if the tunnelers get elsewhere? I think this could be something that they could explore in the show a little bit, maybe. Bring up Hopeville a couple times. Click clack. Either way, I like these people a lot. I'm going to read some things off of the wiki real quick, just because I didn't write them down. Flare guns, flashbangs. So their weaknesses are flashbangs and flare guns and flamers. Flashbangs, these will startle them and cause them to run away. Flare guns, tunnelers will only be frightened by the flare gun if they're hit. And flamers, although not directly damaging them with any effects other than fire damage, firing a flamer at them usually causes them to burrow and resurface at another location. There's a couple different variants of tunnelers. There's basic tunnelers, hulking tunnelers. They're a little bigger. Everything should be behind me. Hulking tunnelers, venomous tunnelers, self-explanatory. Tunneler Queen, always the one you got to look out for. Tunnelers are marked as neutral on the compass when engaging from underground, and they do not take double damage from headshots. Cool. The tunnelers are directly inspired from the creature from the movie The Mole People. What year is The Mole People from? I bet I would. 56. I bet I'd love this. Behind me is just, I'm going to leave this in because it's silly. Behind me is the poster. There's a fun bug here. Sometimes when attacking in VATS, no matter where you're on, they just don't take damage. That's good. That's the tunnelers, my friends. That's really all I have to say. Thanks for checking this one out. This is a fun one. I like stuff like this. If you want to hear any lore, make sure you say something when I ask the question of the week. That is lore.